Please, this is not politics. Reinstate the mandate if you let it down.
President Joe Biden calling on governors to reinstate their mask mandates with cases back on the rise. This as Indiana prepares to change its mask mandate to a mask advisory Tuesday, the day after the Final Four leaves town. Good morning and happy Easter Sunday. It's another momentous week here in the Hoosier State with the eyes of the world watching all the basketball here in Indy. And to keep with that basketball metaphor, now we all have our shot to get the coronavirus vaccine. All Hoosiers 16 and up are eligible. And we got to that point earlier than most of our neighboring states. But now the question of masks moves from a state-by-state distinction to a county-by-county distinction. Starting Tuesday, local governments across Indiana can still keep the mask mandate in place. While some are, many won't. Alexa Green has more.
That's right. At this point, some counties have decided to continue to move forward with the mask mandate. Others, though, will follow the governor's recommendation. We do know that counties like Marion and Monroe will continue to require masks for residents. In Hamilton County, residents will be required to wear a face mask when entering county-owned buildings. And in Johnson County, the state's mask mandate will become an advisory come next week. And several other counties still have not decided what they will do. In the meantime, health experts are weighing in. One IU professor says she hopes the governor will reconsider his decision. She believes if the mandate is removed, it will be extremely difficult to bring it back. She also pointed out the virus can spread beyond county lines.
We've got so many people who live in one county, work in another. Think about the car seat belt. We don't take that off depending on what county we go to, and we shouldn't do that for the mask either.
The governor of Kentucky is also urging Governor Eric Holcomb to reconsider this decision to drop a statewide mask mandate. He says it's not time to let up our guard just yet. Meanwhile, in Ohio and Illinois, they will continue requiring masks for at least the time being. Now, we did reach out to the governor's office, and they told us, quote, the state continues to move ahead. I'll send it back to you in the studio.
Okay, Alexa, thanks. Here now is that exchange between Governor Holcomb and Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear, who called on Holcomb to continue our state's mask mandate.
He's a reasonable person. We've had good conversations. This is one I hope he reconsiders, and if I have the opportunity, I'll certainly ask him personally to reconsider.
All right, so that was Kentucky's governor. Here was the reaction at the State House when Governor Holcomb was asked to respond on Wednesday.
Governor Beshear has my cell phone number, and he clearly has the media's number as well. He has not contacted me. I did see his comments, and I would just say that I've always taken the approach. My style has been to respect all other governors and the decisions that they have to make according to the numbers and what's happening on the ground in their states.
Governor Holcomb this week also saying he plans to veto a bill to limit the amount of power Indiana's governor would have in an emergency. Kayla Sullivan has more.
Legislative leaders say they plan to send this bill to the governor's desk on Monday, but Governor Eric Holcomb says he does not plan to sign it. He calls this legislation unconstitutional. We got reaction from leadership.
We've talked to folks that are confident the constitutionality of it, and we believe that to be the case. And Governor Holcomb's been honest with us about his concerns, and what he said yesterday was no surprise to us. It's no surprise to him that he knows the strong likelihood of us overriding.
Depending on when the governor vetoes the bill, lawmakers could vote to override his decision by the end of session. Originally, lawmakers were going to be in session until April 29th, but they have moved that up a week, so we will continue following this developing story and bring you the latest here and online. For In Focus, I'm Kayla Sullivan.
And I'm joined now by State Senator J.D. Ford. Senator Ford, thank you so much for being with us. I want to get your reaction here to Governor Holcomb's move to end the mask mandate next week, but also some of the legislation that's being discussed now in the Senate that might make it so local health departments wouldn't be able to enforce rules that are more restrictive than the state guidelines.
Yeah, first and foremost, Dan, thank you for having me on. It's great to be with all of you, and appreciate that question. And what I would just simply say is, I support President Biden in taking a very thoughtful, considered approach to easing restrictions. This is not the time to be careless on easing up those restrictions. This is a time for us to be more diligent. The light is flickering at the tunnel, but we've got to finish strong and run through the tape. And I'm afraid that my colleagues here are willing to undo all the hard work that the governor has done and also our fellow Hoosiers.
How do you see this debate playing out in terms of the governor's emergency powers? He's promising a veto on that bill. What does all of this say just generally about the power of the legislative branch and the executive branch of government in Indiana?
Yeah, you know what, Dan, I think this is an eighth grade history, civics lesson that we are currently seeing unfolding before our eyes. But let's not forget about the nearly 13,000 Hoosiers who have lost their lives due to COVID-19. I want to make sure that is front and center on this conversation. And in the Rules Committee, I was disappointed to not hear that point be made. I followed that bill very closely from the Rules Committee to the floor discussion. But what my Republican colleagues are essentially doing is going to basically turn the part-time legislature into a full-time legislature. And if we want to do that, we should have that conversation, but let's not do it under the guise of taking away the governor's emergency powers. And let's just, from a very practical standpoint, in this current environment, do we really want 150 partisan people at the helm, or do we want one person? To me, there'd be too many cooks in the kitchen that we're able to call ourselves into session whenever we want. And look, with one person, we know who to applaud when things are going well, and we know who to blame, when things are not going well. So I would just say that, I know my colleagues feel fatigue on this issue. I know they felt left out of the process. We all feel that way. But there were so many folks that testified in committee that said that this bill is unconstitutional. And I have some very strong thoughts on that. And I think that we should not be turning our back on the Constitution. We all took an oath, and that's what I believe on that issue.
State Senator J.D. Ford, thank you so much for being with us. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
All right, we have more of that interview on our website this week. I also spoke with former state senator and current U.S. Representative Victoria Spartz, who represents Indiana's 5th Congressional District. We spoke about her recent trip to the border and got her thoughts on the governor's decision to end the mask mandate.
Are you concerned the governor might be ending the mask mandate too quickly in Indiana? And should the government, the federal government, play any role in that discussion?
I'm a big believer in states' rights and local controls. There is a difference in different parts of Indiana. There are differences in different parts of the country. So I think that states are better equipped to make this decision. They have more agility. And if you look realistically, it's all recommendation anyway. We're not putting people in jail for not wearing masks, So if people believe, or some people in some areas that it's important, they'll do that. But I think that flexibility is important. And there are different circumstances on the ground in different areas. And I think that states are going to be better at handling it.
You voted against the president's stimulus plan. Now he's unveiling a new transportation and climate bill. Is there anything within that measure you might separately support apart from this larger package he's proposing now?
Well, we have to look at it, because these packages, a lot of them have few good things, but a lot of awful things. And there are many things that are concerning. If you look at the last package, only 99% went to actually fight the pandemic. 91% it was given to a lot of pet projects and different initiatives and bandages that my Democrat colleagues, wanted to give to their supporters. And I think it's unfortunate that we cannot have bipartisan conversation on these issues, because I truly believe we have to invest in good infrastructure. It should be about infrastructure. And then when we spend already $2 trillion and now looking to spend again, how are we going to finance it? And we need to prioritize. As an accountant, I understand what the difference between expenditures and investment in assets. And a lot of our expenditures are not investing in assets, and which bring us future returns. So it's concerning, but I'll try to be open-minded and see what that bill is going to look like. But it looks very concerning right now.
The situation at the border, it's been in the news a lot recently. You were there at the border in recent days. What did you see, and how do you respond to those who say this issue is being overly politicized?
No, this is a crisis. I can tell you. I actually went with my Democrat colleagues because they told that, I was the first Republican who went with them, and I want to make sure that we can have a discussion. I'm going to go with my Republican colleagues next week, and was a trip. A lot of them are member of immigration subcommittee, and they acknowledge we have a very difficult situation. We created a lot of perverse incentives. Now we have a ton of little kids that Border Patrol has to handle, and there is no help from President. President created these perverse incentives where he's decided to keep these kids in our country, not send them back, but then he didn't send resources even to deal with that.
Representative Spartz in Indiana's congressional delegation also reacting to the news Friday that another Capitol police officer had been attacked and killed in an incident Friday with a vehicle outside the Capitol involving a suspect with ties to Indianapolis. Much more on that later today on Fox News Sunday and Face the Nation. Coming up next, the controversial new law in Georgia and how the backlash to that law may remind some of a recent controversy in Indiana. Plus, the panel on our current governor's political fortunes and our former governor and former VP. Does he still have a future in politics? That's next.